"Get away from the corral!" the cowboy shouted, but it was too late. The black Mustang with a white star on his forehead launched into the air, hooves slicing through the air inches from Jake's head. The 37-year-old man with a scar across his right temple stood frozen, feeling no fear, only strange familiarity. "Rattlesnake kills men faster than lightning," Red McDonald, owner of White Peak Ranch in Montana, said breathlessly. "In 3 years, he's maimed 5 experienced cowboys. And you?" Red shook his head, watching Jake stand motionless beside the corral. The horse's eyes burned with bright fire, but there was something more than rage in them. Recognition? Jake reached toward his jacket pocket. Rattlesnake instantly calmed, snorted, and stepped closer. Automatically, as if dreams guided his movements, Jake pulled out peppermint candies. "Impossible," Red whispered. "He doesn't let anyone near." The Mustang carefully took the treats from Jake's palm, his velvet lips barely touching the skin. Suddenly, painful memories flashed in the man's head. Those same brown eyes, that same snort, but a younger horse, smaller. A girl's voice. "Black Wind, stay." Jake's heart pounded. Black Wind? How did he know that name? "Who is Black Wind?" he asked in a trembling voice. Red went pale. "How do you know that name? Rattlesnake was born here, but his mother—" Jesus Christ. His mother was called Black Wind. She died 12 years ago. Jake felt the world spinning around him. 12 years ago. Exactly when doctors said he lost his memory after a terrible car crash somewhere in the Montana mountains. Rescuers found him without documents, half dead. The Mustang quietly nickered and laid his head on Jake's shoulder. In that moment, the man heard distant bells, not with his ears, but with his heart. Fragments of the past began forming a mosaic. A girl's dress the color of sky, laughter among pine trees, a promise to return. Emma, he whispered a name he hadn't remembered until this second. Rattlesnake raised his head and looked directly into Jake's eyes, as if confirming something important. Suddenly, the horse turned and galloped toward the far corner of the pasture, where an old pine stood with carved initials. Jake ran after him, his heart beating so hard it seemed ready to burst from his chest. What did that pine hide? And why did this name, Emma, burn his soul like a lost treasure? The old pine's bark was scarred by 12 winters, but the carved letters remained clear. JM and ER forever, June 15th, 2013. Jake's knees buckled. James Mitchell. That was his real name. Rattlesnake nudged him gently with his muzzle, as if sensing the avalanche of memories crashing through Jake's mind. Emma Reeves, beautiful Emma with auburn hair that caught sunlight like fire. They were supposed to be married that summer. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Red's voice cracked as he caught up. "You carved this? 12 years ago?" His weathered face went ashen. "Emma Reeves. God almighty, that girl died in the same crash that nearly killed you." "No!" The word tore from Jake's throat like a wounded animal's cry. Rattlesnake reared protectively, placing himself between Jake and Red, ears pinned back in warning. The memories flooded back in agonizing waves. Racing to the church in his pickup truck, Emma laughing beside him in her white dress. "Drive faster, James. We're already late for our own wedding." The deer leaping into the road, the screech of brakes, the sickening crunch of metal against pine. She's not dead. Jake's voice was barely a whisper. I would remember if she died. I would feel it. Red pulled off his hat, running gnarled fingers through gray hair. Son, I was at her funeral. Half the county was there. Emma Reeves was beloved by everyone. The whole town mourned for months. Rattlesnake suddenly lifted his head, nostrils flaring. A low rumble vibrated from his chest, not anger, but warning. Through the timber came the sound of approaching vehicles, multiple engines, moving fast. That's not good, Red muttered, squinting toward the road. Only one reason trucks move that fast toward my place. 3 black SUVs burst through the ranch gates, kicking up dust clouds. Men in dark suits emerged, their movement sharp and military precise. The lead man was tall, silver-haired, with eyes like winter ice. James Mitchell, the man called out, his voice carrying unusual authority. Or do you prefer Jake these days? Rattlesnake's warning rumble deepened to a threatening roar. The Mustang positioned himself directly in front of Jake, muscles coiled for attack. Who are you? Jake demanded, instinctively placing a calming hand on Rattlesnake's neck. Someone who's been looking for you for 12 years. The man smiled, but it held no warmth. My name is Victor Crane. Your fiancée, Emma, worked for me before her unfortunate accident. Worked for you how? Intelligence gathering. Very sensitive work. Crane's eyes glittered. She discovered something she shouldn't have. Something worth killing for. The world tilted. Emma wasn't just a small-town girl. She was a spy. The crash wasn't an accident, was it? Jake's voice cracked. Very perceptive. We arranged for both of your deaths that day. Imagine our surprise when you survived with convenient amnesia. Crane gestured to his men, who began spreading out in a tactical formation. But memories have a way of returning, and certain secrets must stay buried. Rattlesnake exploded into motion, charging toward the nearest SUV with primal fury. Jake dove behind the pine tree as gunfire erupted, splinters of bark exploding around him. His horse, Emma's horse's son, was fighting to protect him against the same people who had murdered the woman he loved. But where was Emma's body really buried? And why did his heart insist she was still alive? Rattlesnake's scream of pain cut through the gunfire like a blade through Jake's heart. No! Jake lunged from behind the pine as his horse stumbled, dark blood streaming down his left shoulder. The Mustang's eyes blazed with wounded fury, but he kept fighting, striking out with his hooves at Crane's advancing men. Red appeared from nowhere with a hunting rifle, laying down covering fire. "Get to the barn!" he shouted. "There's a tunnel!" Jake grabbed Rattlesnake's mane, swinging onto the injured horse's back. The Mustang surged forward despite his wound, carrying Jake toward the weathered barn as bullets whined past their heads. Trust flowed between man and horse like electricity, the same trust that had once existed between Jake and Black Wind. Inside the barn, Red threw open a hidden trapdoor. "Emma showed me this years ago," he panted. "Said it was an old underground railroad tunnel. Comes out 2 miles north by Widow's Creek." Emma knew about this place? Jake slid off Rattlesnake, examining the horse's wound. Flesh wound, but bleeding heavily. "She practically lived here that last summer. Said she was researching local history, but..." Red's eyes widened with sudden understanding. "Sweet Jesus, she was planning an escape route." Jake's hands moved automatically, tearing his shirt to bandage Rattlesnake's shoulder. More memories crashed through his mind. Emma staying late at the library, asking strange questions about old mining tunnels, insisting they should have a backup plan for their honeymoon trip. She knew they were coming for her, Jake whispered. Explosions rocked the barn above them. Crane's men were using grenades. Move! Red pushed them toward the tunnel. Rattlesnake can't make it through there injured. I'm not leaving him. Then you'll both die. Rattlesnake nudged Jake firmly toward the tunnel entrance, then turned back toward the barn door. The horse's message was clear. Go. I'll buy you time. Like hell. Jake pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts he barely remembered having. There. Dr. Sarah Chen, large animal veterinarian. Emergency number. His fingers moved by instinct, muscle memory from a life he'd forgotten. Sarah? It's James Mitchell. I need extraction for an injured horse. Widow's Creek in 30 minutes. He paused, old tradecraft flooding back. Use the Aurora Protocol. Aurora Protocol? Where had that come from? Red stared at him. Who the hell are you, boy? Above them, Rattlesnake let out a battle cry that shook the rafters. The sound of splintering wood suggested he was making the barn very expensive to enter. Jake's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Emma's alive. Hidden safe house. Trust no one else. Follow the Northern Star. A friend. His heart stopped. Emma alive? But how? Who sent this? A second text. Crane killed her double. Emma's been watching you for months through security cameras at the ranch. She's been waiting for you to remember. Rattlesnake suddenly appeared in the tunnel entrance, wild-eyed but moving. Behind him, the barn erupted in flames. They've got RPGs, Red cursed. Military-grade hardware. Jake grabbed Rattlesnake's mane again. Can you run, boy? The Mustang's answer was to bolt toward the tunnel's mouth, carrying Jake into darkness. Trust. Emma had taught them both about trust. As they emerged at Widow's Creek, Jake saw headlights approaching. But were they Dr. Chen's people or Crane's hunters closing the trap? The Northern Star. Emma always said it would guide them home. But which direction was home when the woman you loved had been dead for 12 years, yet somehow was still alive and watching? Rattlesnake lifted his head toward the north, where the first star was appearing in the twilight sky. Dr. Sarah Chen emerged from the veterinary truck, but she wasn't alone. James, thank God you're alive. The woman Jake remembered as Emma's best friend rushed toward them, her medical bag in hand. Behind her, two men in tactical gear scanned the perimeter with night vision goggles. Rattlesnake tensed, but allowed Sarah to approach. She worked quickly on his shoulder wound, her skilled hands gentle despite the urgency. Emma's waiting for you, Sarah whispered as she stitched. But first, there's something you need to know about that night 12 years ago. Jake's phone buzzed again. New message. Don't trust Chen. She worked for Crane. Get out now. Too late. Sarah's syringe was already sliding into his neck. I'm sorry, James, she said softly as his vision began to blur. But some secrets are worth more than friendship. Rattlesnake exploded with rage, striking out at Sarah's men as Jake collapsed. The Mustang grabbed Jake's jacket in his teeth, dragging his unconscious body toward the creek. Even wounded and outnumbered, the horse fought like a demon, buying precious minutes. Jake's last conscious sight was Rattlesnake's determined brown eyes, so much like his mother's, refusing to abandon him. Darkness claimed him. When Jake awoke, he was strapped to a chair in what looked like an abandoned mine shaft. His head pounded from the sedative, but his mind was crystal clear for the first time in 12 years. Every memory had returned, including the ones he wished had stayed buried. Victor Crane sat across from him, cleaning a pistol with methodical precision. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Agent Mitchell." Crane's smile was reptilian. "Or should I say, welcome back to the land of the remembering. You were quite good at your job before the accident." "I was CIA?" Jake's voice was hoarse. "One of our best, until you fell in love with the wrong woman." Crane loaded bullets into the cylinder. "Emma discovered Operation Blackwater, our little arrangement with certain foreign governments. Very profitable, very illegal, very deadly if exposed. A movably devastating script. The pieces clicked into place. Jake wasn't just a victim. He had been a federal agent investigating corruption when he met Emma. They both discovered the conspiracy. "She's not really dead, is she?" "Oh, she's about to be." Crane gestured toward a security monitor. On screen, a woman with auburn hair sat chained in another part of the mine. Emma. Older, thinner, but unmistakably alive. Jake's heart shattered and soared simultaneously. 12 years in captivity? 12 years of refusing to tell us where she hid the evidence. Crane stood, chambering around. But tonight, watching her lover die might finally loosen her tongue. A thunderous crash echoed through the mine shaft, shouting, "Gunfire! What the hell?" Crane spun toward the entrance. Through the chaos came a sound that made Jake's blood sing with hope. Rattlesnake's battle cry. The Mustang burst into the chamber like a black avalanche, hooves striking Crane's men down like bowling pins. Behind him charged Red McDonald and a group of local ranchers armed with hunting rifles and righteous fury. "Montana folks don't take kindly to strangers shooting up our horses," Red growled, leveling his rifle at Crane. But Crane was already moving, grabbing the detonator from his belt. "Emma dies in 30 seconds, he snarled, "along with half this mountain." The countdown began. 30. 29, 28. Jake's bonds snapped as Rattlesnake bit through the ropes. But the mine was a maze, and Jake had no idea which direction led to Emma. 27, 26, 25. Rattlesnake turned toward a tunnel Jake hadn't noticed, pawing the ground urgently. Trust. Always trust. Jake leaped onto the horse's back, and they plunged into darkness, racing against time toward the woman they both loved. The woman whose memory had brought them together across 12 years of separation. 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19. Rattlesnake galloped through the mine tunnels with supernatural precision, as if the horse possessed a map written in his DNA. Jake clung to his mane, trusting completely in the Mustang's instincts. 18, 17, 16. They burst into a chamber where Emma sat chained to a support beam, her eyes wide with disbelief. "James?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Oh God, you remembered?" 15, 14, 13. Jake leaped down, his hands shaking as he worked the lock on Emma's chains. "I never forgot you," he gasped. "Not really. My heart remembered even when my mind couldn't." 12, 11, 10. The chains snapped free, but Emma couldn't stand. 12 years of captivity had weakened her legs. Jake swept her into his arms as Rattlesnake positioned himself beside them. 9, 8, 7. "The exit's blocked." Emma pointed toward the tunnel they'd entered. "Cranesmen sealed it when they heard you coming." 6, 5, 4. Rattlesnake suddenly reared and struck the wooden support beam with his front hooves. The ancient timber cracked, revealing a natural fissure in the rock behind it. A way out that only a horse's instincts could have detected. 3, 2. Jake threw Emma onto Rattlesnake's back and dove after her as the Mustang squeezed through the narrow opening. They tumbled down a natural slide of loose rock and emerged gasping beside Widow's Creek just as the mountain erupted behind them. 1. The explosion lit the Montana sky like an artificial sunrise. When the dust settled, Victor Crane and his conspiracy were buried forever under 1,000 tons of granite. Emma touched Jake's face with trembling fingers, tracing the scar he'd carried for 12 years, a scar that matched the smaller one hidden beneath her hairline. "I watched you every day through the ranch security cameras," she whispered. "I saw you struggling to remember and it broke my heart. But I couldn't risk contacting you until you were strong enough to handle the truth." The evidence against Blackwater? Hidden in Blackwind's old stall, your horse's mother was the perfect secret keeper. Emma smiled through her tears. "I encrypted everything in a file called Mustang Memories." Jake turned to thank Rattlesnake, but the Mustang was lying on his side. His breathing labored. The gunshot wound, the stress, the desperate escape. It had been too much for even his warrior's heart. "No." Jake knelt beside his savior. "Not now. Not after everything." Emma's hand found his. "Jeans, look at his eyes." Rattlesnake's brown eyes held peace, not pain. In them, Jake saw something impossible. Blackwind's gentle spirit saying goodbye. The son completing what the mother had started 12 years ago, bringing her human family back together. "He's not dying," Emma whispered. "He's choosing to rest. Look around." Jake raised his head. The creek was surrounded by wild horses. Rattlesnake's herd, drawn by some invisible signal. They formed a protective circle, acknowledging their leader's sacrifice. Dr. Chen's veterinary truck appeared over the ridge, but this time with legitimate rescue personnel. The real Sarah Chen, Emma's actual friend, not Crane's imposter who'd been using her identity. As the genuine Dr. Chen worked to stabilize Rattlesnake, the Mustang lifted his head one final time. He looked directly at Jake and Emma, touched his muzzle to their joined hands, and closed his eyes with a contented sigh. 3 months later, Jake and Emma stood before the same old pine tree where their love story had been carved 12 years earlier. Rattlesnake grazed peacefully nearby, fully healed, and now the gentlest horse on Red McDonald's ranch. Emma wore a simple blue dress, the color of Montana sky. Jake wore his grandfather's ring on his finger and his heart on his sleeve. "Ready to finish what we started?" Emma asked. "I've been ready for 12 years, Jake replied. Rattlesnake lifted his head and nickered softly, a sound of pure approval. Some memories are too powerful to erase. Some bonds transcend time, death, and even amnesia. And sometimes it takes a Mustang with his mother's heart to remind us that love is the most enduring memory of all.